have to confess a few things. Okay? So it's kind of weird, kind of awkward. I don't know how many pastors would all open up like this, but there has been a few times in my past where I'll admit I have broken the law. I have. 3 times were totally by accident, I swear. Okay? I swear, it was an accident. Didn't mean to do it. Didn't mean to do it. One was intentional. 1 was intentional. 2. So, first one. When I was like 6, I was at a grocery store with my mom and I took a pack of gum. I wanted it. It was good. Peppermint. I love peppermint. So, I was like, there's gum right there. And I just took it. My mom didn't know until she saw me chewing it in the car. When we were like, where'd you get that gum? I'm like, from the lady. It's like, it made me go back and I had to pay for it. So I am a thief. I stole a pack of gum. One time, actually, so I learned my lesson because when I was at a friend's house one time, he had a toy that I wanted. I took it, and this time I didn't tell my mom because I knew she was going to make me take it back. I have 2 speeding tickets. I have 2 speeding tickets. Both of them, I promise, I did not see the change in speed. Speed on the highway on the veterans. Did not see it. Still going 75. I thought it was 75 and 65. I didn't know. I promise. But that excuse was no good for the state patrol. He didn't care. He wrote me on my $300 ticket. Anyways, both times, same guy, by the way, too. It's like he has it out for me. It's the same guy. Now this one, I was intentional. My first ticket. I got another ticket. I got a little sheriff here, so here's my other ticket. Sir, I gotta admit.
Hold on.
My first ticket. I did get a ticket here. I crossed a double line to get into a left turning lane with the cop literally behind me. Such an idiot. I'm the worst criminal ever. And so the cop was right behind me, and I was in such a hurry to get to where I needed to get to. I didn't want to. You guys ever seen that? Left turning lane, it's all backed up. Like, whatever. So I was like, did this. Oh my God. My first ticket ever. Horrible. I'm bad. And then and the last one is technically it's gonna happen right now. And so part of today, guys, we call today Pulpit Freedom Sunday for a reason. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. And so today is Pulpit Freedom Sunday, and the reason why it's called Pulpit Freedom Sunday is celebrated throughout all the United States, and it's been going on for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. I know I've been a part of it for 4 years. And so I think there's like 3,500 pastors, I think they're engaging it right now. And the idea is that a pastor today would stand up and for their First Amendment right to be able to preach God's Word. No matter what it would say, no matter the implications, especially when it comes to social issues or policies, politics, that's what it's about. And now you might think, I'm like, well, what's the problem with that? Couldn't pastors do it anyways? And the thing is that just to give you a little quick history, it's about 50 or 60 years or so that Lyndon B. Johnson, you guys ever heard of LBJ? He was the president right around JFK. Okay, LBJ followed JFK. And he was a senator at a time, and he was running in Texas, and there was a couple of people. There was these 2 business owners that didn't like this man's stance, Lyndon B. Johnson, that was running for Congress, didn't like his stance on communism. He thought it was a little too weak, a little too soft. He didn't like that. So, like any good politician, like if it was the truth, then I don't see why he would have to worry about that, because he would be like, hey, my record shows that I'm not. So truth should speak on its own. But like any good politician that's lost their soul, he decided to rig the game instead. And so what he did was, he shoved in during one form of legislation, because you got to vote on stuff and discuss things before things go into law, but there happens to be a little window that a lot of people don't know, that you can just tack things on at the back end, and there's no discussion, no debate, nothing. It just says, it just got added on, gets voted in, boom. That's a very dangerous thing, because anybody can sneak something in there and it'd be a big deal. So Lyndon B. Johnson added an amendment to a bill that was kind of reforming the tax code, and it's called the Johnson Amendment for his name. And the reason being is that a nonprofit institution cannot be engaged in defaming or involved in political speech that would harm a politician. He did that to get back at his enemies because they were making him look bad. You guys see kind of the idea? And so here's the thing. He had an intention. He was like, look, that, I don't know, they weren't playing nice, so I'm not going to play nice either, and I'm going to rig the game so they don't do that again. The problem is that years later, people started seeing, oh, wait a minute, sometimes there's some issues that we're trying to get through and pass through legislation, but pastors are preaching something that is opposite of that. So we have to find a way around the system. And so what they did was they started applying this Johnson Amendment to pastors, saying that if you as a pastor say anything in regards to a politician, mention his name, mention anything like that, mention even an issue that would be voted on or discussed, we'll take away your tax code. We'll take away your tax exemption. Now that would ruin a ton of churches right today, because not everybody's rolling in Paul. I'm going to tell you right now, neither is ours. If that happened, the added stress of financial stress, we would have to pretty much shut down, and a lot of churches would have to do that. And so now the interesting thing is that the amendment, and Lyndon B. Johnson, the people that put that in there, will admit that was never the intention. We never had intentions to apply that to churches. But that's what happens. When government steps in one area that doesn't belong to, they can just free reign to kind of run wherever they want to. And so a lot of pastors for 50 years have been too chicken to say anything because of that. Not only are they chicken because of what the IRS might do, but they're chicken to people in the seats. They're afraid that they'll lose somebody, and if they lose somebody, they're afraid they're going to lose their wallet that goes with their butt attached to the seat that they sit in. And so they don't want to talk about stuff because they don't want things to kind of be, oh, no, just stay, please stay. Give me money. And so they don't say anything. And so we have both a double whammy that's limited the church to saying, oh, no, okay, our Christian walk only is about you and God. It's just about you and God, and just that's it. That's all about you. That's it. And it's not that it has to do with anything else in life. And we've retracted from all these areas, from history, from politics, and from education, and from serving, from all these things, even from charity, and all this stuff. And they've taken it, and they've taken it over. And so the idea, guys, is today, I'm literally, again, for the 4th year in a row, I'm doing anything because they're not, because they're a bunch of punks. They're not doing it. And so I'm not going to do it again. Because, first off, they can't, because the Johnson Amendment is not greater than the First Amendment. That's why. The First Amendment is greater than the Johnson Amendment, meaning that my freedom, my First Amendment in the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, my freedom to congregate with you, freedom for you to congregate together, freedom for me to write what I feel in my heart to write, freedom to say what I feel like I need to be said, I can do that, and that trumps that unconstitutional Johnson Amendment. And so, 4th year in a row, okay, outlaw, right here we go. So, for 4 years running, and so now, my wife, she's not clapping, because my wife's not clapping because she gets nervous. And the thing is that the reason why I want to try to, and especially why I do this, because I think of you, because a lot of times Christians, they back up because the pastor backs up. And so I don't want you to, because you don't have to. And so that's the biggest thing, guys, I want you to talk about, that I wanted to mention today, especially that big idea that the Johnson Amendment is not greater than the First Amendment. And so the thing is that, now what am I going to do? Here's what I'm not going to do, okay? I'm not going to just give you opinions or positions, because guess what? That's not my job. And guess what? It's not your job to just take whatever I tell you blindly. It's not your job either. Your job is to kind of figure things out, put two and two together. Now, I kind of help you out with that answer, not because it's what I think either, because it's not my job. Don't shoot the messenger, okay? Don't shoot the messenger, because whatever I want to tell you is not what I feel like is, oh, I think. No, it's what God says. And so the thing is that we totally focus on policies, and policies tend to divide us because we have opinions on policies. Policies divide us, but principles can unite us, especially if we don't agree on a lot of particulars. So, I think it's going to be really cool. So let's talk about this for a little bit. Now, I'm going to make a crazy statement here. This was totally true. Okay? Everyone, regardless of what faith you believe in or non-faith you believe in, regardless if you think Jesus was real or not, or fake, or regardless if you like the cross Jesus, the shiny Jesus, or baby Jesus. I don't care which Jesus you like or non-like. I want you to understand this. Important phrase. Everyone should want a government to promote Christian principles, not enforce them. Even the strongest atheist should want that. Every government, every person in the United States or any country should want the government to promote Christian principles, but not, key word, not enforce them. And there's a big difference. Now you might see, whoa, no. What are you talking about? And so, which is really interesting because the big opposition is, well, no, you can't promote your principles, we'll promote mine instead. I'm like, that's a weird game here. Now, if you look at our history, guys, the intention was never for us to be a Christian nation by force. We were never totally labeled a Christian nation because the majority of us were Christian. That was not it whatsoever. The idea was that it was just a Christian nation based on Christian principles. And they made a decision. They actually did their work and they did their history. And part of how they framed everything was saying, look, out of every idea that we can do, all the failed governments in the past, all the forms of society, you know what? There's something special about these Christian principles, because there's a lot of these Christian principles that even non-believers believe in and could agree on. Even Muslims could agree on some of these. Even Hindus and Buddhists, and they can agree on these. And so let's focus on being these Christian principles. Now, why not just say all principles? Well, because again, all right, we're gonna go play basketball? I'm saying, no, but I don't like playing basketball. If we're gonna play basketball, I gotta play by football rules. Okay, now you're weird. Now that's making no. So the idea was we just picked a rule that we can say, look, we're not gonna enforce this, but we're just gonna promote this. Now here's why I really think that every government should promote Christian principles, but not enforce them. Education was one. The Bible, God speaks to every aspect of society. He talks about education. It's about how the family's role, the multi-generational role that happens. And it's the responsibility that happens, regardless if you're a kid in public school, homeschool, parents play a major role, and grandparents. And it talks about that. It talks about taxation. God's awesome with a flat tax. Hey, 10% right across the top. I think it's a good idea. Next one, government. He said, the Bible, God actually talks about government. What's the point of government? Is to be able to put down bad guys and to be able to prop up good guys. That's it. And, that's what it's supposed to be. When we're starting now to prop up bad guys and put down good guys, that's a problem. And so, but it talks about that. God talks about that. God talks about immigration too. Talking about immigration reform, He's figured it out. There should be a way. You welcome people in that want to come in. He talks about that. You do that. You're kind to them. You're generous. You're welcoming. You don't know where they're coming from. If they're coming from bad places, then you help them. You love them. But then it also gives requirements from immigrants. It's like, okay, now you're going to be a part of this, so you got to play your role. You got to participate. You got to engage. There's a cost. There's something you got to play in as well. So it's both in there, which is really cool. Did you know that it was in there? God talks about immigration reform a lot of times in here. Let's see, healthcare. You know that it talks about that. How to eat well, how to take care of yourself, things like that. Bible talks about healthcare. Bible talks about gun control too. Jesus actually told his people to strap up before they went somewhere. Do you know that? Okay, he did. It's in there. I promise you. Okay, I promise you. He told them, hey. But he also said this, because at one time, self-defense is a godly principle. Like you can't, without exceeding, unless you felt, threatened, I guess. And I know we can split hairs on that, but that's a principle, not a particular. Jesus said and yelled at Peter because he was trying to defend himself one time. Did you know that? When they came to get Jesus, hey, we are being attacked. He took his sword out, about to square up to somebody, and Jesus said, whoa, hold on. Put your sword in its place. Even though Peter had a right to defend himself because they were bragging to Jesus. Jesus said, hold on, there's a place for that. Even if there's some times where you feel the right to defend yourself, doesn't mean that you have to. So it's an interesting place. And so Jesus said, look, it's important, have it with you, but you got to know your place. You've got to know your place. You've got to know your heart, which is, are you trusting in the sword or are you trusting in Jesus? Peter was trusting in his sword that he can get Jesus out, instead of trusting in Jesus to take care of the whole situation. Moving on, charity. You guys know that God talks about charity. How we're supposed to handle charity as a people, as families, as societies. You guys know that Thorn Ministry group that went with us? You know what they told me? They told me that the city of Tampa makes it impossible for them to do what they do. They get kicked out of these places, and they're helping some messed up people that need help. They need help. And the city of Tampa, every once in a while, is just makes it even harass the family at one point to try to get them to stop. Now, there are legit reasons. There are legit reasons why they wouldn't want something like that. But there's a way that we can work together. Probably, right? I'm pretty sure there's a way. And so, but there's a way we can work on that. Marriage and sex, I'll tell you right now, if you're not with, the idea being the best scenario when it comes to sex is, hey, you find your one person you're going to be with, marry that person, stick with them for the rest of your life. That's it. That's how it's best. If you do opposite of that, I don't care if you're gay, I don't care if you're not. I don't care if you're married and you're sleeping around. You do anything outside of that, problems come every single time. Physical problems, emotional problems, all of it happens when it's not based on God. All these STDs are a result of us not following what God intends sex to be. So look, if you don't want to you don't want to believe in Jesus and stuff like that, then just, but find one person, marry that person, hang out with that person, don't be with anybody else. That's a principle. You do that, and hey, some good stuff is going to go for you. So, I mean, he talks about that. You know, the Bible talks about private property, that you can't just take somebody, for example, thou shalt not steal. Okay? God talks about private property, why it's so important. And you know, we even have a system right now that the government can take something from you, and you have to prove yourself innocent. That's backwards. That's messed up stuff, and that's true. They can totally do that. Employment. The Bible talks about what good employee, to be a good employer, to be a good employee. Talks about that. Good business practices, honorable business practices. If you want to start a business, run a business, got it all right here. Here's the playbook on how to do it right. Talks about science. There's things in science, not particulars in science, but big ideas, things that help us on viewing scientific evidence. Talks about equal opportunity. God looks at a person and says, look, I don't see, man and woman and Jew and Greek and, what you are, you're a person. But doesn't promise equal opportunity. And so, he doesn't promise, equal results. Equal opportunity is one thing, equal results is not. Talks about history, alcohol, drugs, what is for law, war, self-defense, Israel, standing for them, all of this, economics, which I'm going to dig in with that in the next couple of series we're going to talk about over the next 6 weeks. Just Godonomics. What does God say to the God Almighty say to the Almighty God as an individual and as a society? So macro, micro. It's total nerd alert. I'm warning you for the next 6 weeks. It's going to be awesome. I'm telling you. Nerd alert, but you're going to love it. It's going to be good stuff. I promise. You won't even think like, wow, I totally got an interesting spiritual revelation from rehypothecation. Okay? Cool stuff. Okay. Such a dork. I'm such a dork. Alright, but anyways, all these things. Why I mention all these things? Guys, because look, God talks about every aspect of our lives. He talks about it all. And now, there's not a lot of particulars. You're not going to find in here who's the person you're going to marry, what job you're going to take. You can't find that. But you find the compass. You find Him that guides you to the decision, to the person, to the path, all of those things. And so, but when it comes to all of that, even when it comes to our society and government and all that, we have to know what's up. Because here's the thing, we're always going to have people in our world, in our life, in society that like to control people. Okay, you ever had a sibling that just kind of loved to be the one to, I'm going to tell you right now, that would be, I used to get my brother to do all my dirty work. I like to control. Okay, anybody like that? I used to like that, not anymore. And so I would be like, hey, go get some colors. Because I knew if he get caught, he'd get beat, and I just be. My oldest is like that. That's what he does. He always sends the little one. He gets spankings, and he's asleep. I got good at that. Even my senior trip, I used to do some shaky stuff with my friends, and I never got caught because I'm a good guy. They didn't know. They didn't see it coming. So total secret. I'm glad I'm not like that anymore. Thank God, because like, some of you, what kind of pastor would listen to right now? No, that's who I used to be. But the idea, guys, is look. We're always going to have people that want to control and want to manipulate and do that. And C.S. Lewis had a great idea. He used to say, look, these kind of tyrants, the scariest ones is the one that want to control people. Out of the goodness. I just love you so much, I have to run your life for you. Right? And so he's saying, it's you and I love you and you know what, poor you, you know what, you got a lot going on. Let me make certain, you can't handle this, let me make certain decisions for you. Let me tell you what you need to do. Just go follow along and just do it. And we have people like that, especially in positions of government. That's a natural place for that to root. And he actually said now those people, even the ones that I really believe sometimes, people really mean well, Like Johnson, he had an idea, didn't mean it to be one thing, well, whatever. Okay. People mean well. But C.S. Lewis said that sometimes these people that mean well might likely go to heaven. They might. But it's more likely that they'll make hell on earth before they do that. And that's what happens. And so it just kind of messes things up. And so here's the thing that I want to discuss with you guys. Because why would anyone want to promote Christian principles and not enforce them? Because if we did that, well, we see it as proven, there's more stability. Even if we don't necessarily agree on that one God, but we held on to principles, there would be more stability, more economic prosperity, more liberty. It would be it because that's what we've seen. But we got a problem, don't we? Are we there? No. Do we agree on principles anymore? No, because we've been so divided by policies. And here's the thing, is when it comes to policies and principles, our policies have divided us. So I don't know if you ever saw like the headline on the news report on Drudge when President Obama was elected. It said, the divided states of America. That was the headline in that election. The divided states of America. And so, what does that mean? What are we going to do? How do we go from there? I mean, how do we remedy that? You know, how can we remedy? Because, for example, have you ever gotten to a discussion?